Let's talk about the biggest questions for Week 14. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Heath Cummings, and we'll start off today's show with a little bit of good news, which is rare in the 2023 fantasy football season, but it sounds like Trevor Lawrence's injury may not have been as serious as it looked on Monday night. If you listen to the podcast, it sounded very sad, I'm sure, about it, but look, he's been diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. It's not believed to be a season-ending injury. However, the thing about a high ankle sprain is he could play through it this week. They haven't ruled that out. It could also be 3 or 4 weeks. You know, that's the kind of thing with this injury that we have to keep in mind is just because it's not a worst case scenario doesn't necessarily mean it's a best case scenario. And as we've seen with Trevor Lawrence earlier on in the season when he was dealing with that knee injury, that did seem to hinder him. It comes at a bad time because he has been playing better over the past couple of weeks. Heath, what are your expectations for this Jaguars offense if CJ Beathard has to play in Week 14? And it's also worth noting, Christian Kirk likely done for the season with a core muscle injury. I mean, I don't really know what to make of this. Calvin Ridley is only productive when he has both Zay Jones and Christian Kirk healthy, but that's been the trend so far. It's a 4-game sample size where we're talking about, but still, what are your expectations here?
I will start Travis Etienne. And I'm probably going to start Evan Ingram still.
Yeah.
I think you have to view Calvin Ridley as what he has been, a boom-bust, highly volatile number 3 wide receiver. I'm not sure there's actually that much difference between him and Gabe Davis. The floor is probably a little bit higher for Calvin Ridley, but not in a way that really matters because who cares if he scored 2 points or 5 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Gabe had a 0-point game.
He did have a 0, so 0 or 5. But yeah, I think somewhere in that wide receiver 25 to 35 range for Ridley.
Yeah, that's is T. Higgins in that same range?
I have T. Higgins quite a bit lower. He hasn't quite been right for most of this season. He doesn't have the same connection, it seems, with Browning. I think he might be the 3rd option behind Tyler Boyd even.
Okay, let's move on to some of the bigger questions for Week 14. And I think a really interesting one is Jordan Love just a QB1 now? You know, obviously, pretty good matchup this week against the Giants. They've got a good pass rush, but otherwise their defense is pretty bad. Where are you ranking Jordan Love right now?
He is a top 12 quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean the same thing that it used to because half the top 12 quarterbacks have been hurt this year. But I would start him over Jared Goff on the road. Sure. I would start him over Russell Wilson. If Joshua Dobbs is the starter for the Vikings, I'd rather start Jordan Love. But he's still behind the top 10 that I think most people probably have ranked as top 10 quarterbacks.
You have him ahead of or behind C.J. Stroud against the Jets?
He is 1 spot behind C.J. Stroud.
What about Justin Herbert?
Definitely have him behind Justin Herbert. I have not adjusted as much as it seems like everyone else has for the last couple of weeks of poor performance from Justin Herbert. 2 weeks ago, he was a top 3 quarterback in fantasy production. He plays against the Ravens and the Patriots, and now people are talking about benching him.
What about Brock Purdy?
Definitely Brock Purdy, the MVP favorite.
All right, let's move on to the running back position where we did also learn on Tuesday that Ramondre Stevenson is dealing with a high ankle sprain. Again, not done for the season necessarily, but the way these injuries work, you remember Austin Eckler and Saquon Barkley earlier in the season, could be 3 to 4 weeks, could be effectively over. So where are you ranking Ezekiel Elliott for Thursday's game against the Steelers?
Too high. I think it's really sad that somebody out there is going to lose Week 14 and miss the playoffs because somebody else is going to play Ezekiel Elliott and Devontae Parker against them and win. But that's the kind of state of things. I think you can pencil Zeke in for 20 touches pretty easily.
Yeah.
He's not go. It's one of those situations where while Ramondre Stevenson might be better than Ezekiel Elliott, and that hasn't really borne itself out in the efficiency this year, Zeke's going to see more touches than Ramondre was when Zeke was sharing with him. So 20 touches, top 20 running back for Zeke.
Yeah, the problem is he's going to get whatever goal line work there is. The Patriots, I believe, since the month of October, have scored fewer points than the Bengals did last night.
Yeah.
I believe that's a real stat. I'm not making that up. So, yeah, I have Ezekiel Elliott 21st, so I'm not far from you. But it's one of those ones where if a guy's going to get 18 to 25 touches, like Ezekiel Elliott probably is, it's going to be really hard to get away from him. Where are you at, moving on to the wide receiver biggest question? Is Nico Collins just the top 12 wide receiver the rest of the way?
100%. Yeah. Top 3 in yards per route run on the season. Just an absolute monster with CJ Stroud. And now this 20% target share it's been going to Tank Dell is going to get chopped up, but some of it's going to go to Nico Collins. I think like this is a terrible matchup against the Jets, and I still rank him in the top 12.
He's 13 for me, so a little more bullish, bearish, right? I guess that would be the right way to phrase that. I don't know of money. But yeah, I think Nico Collins absolutely a must-start guy moving forward. And let's do one more before we go. Tight end, who's your favorite Trey McBride replacement for this week?
Oh, I don't have somebody that I like enough to where I would call them a favorite, I don't think. But my top-ranked streamer is probably going to be Tyler Conklin, assuming that we get Zach Wilson back. We've got this trio of tight ends just outside of the top 12. Tyler Conklin, Gerald Everett, and then Brevin Jordan if there's no Dalton Schultz. They all have fantastic matchups in terms of what defenses have done against tight ends this season. And so one of those 3 guys, leaning towards Conklin, assuming Zach Wilson agrees to play.
All right. Isaiah Likely just a little too highly rostered for that?
Yeah, he's in
or
there. Or
just not impressed with him. That's also a possibility.
That's another one where I moved him up in the rankings higher. I was looking at my projections higher than I have him projected because it's just been one game where he's done anything at all. He's had 3 opportunities without Andrews, and he has one game where he was okay, and that was 4 for 40 on 6 targets.
Yeah, I think going back to last season, he's played 6 games where Andrews has missed the majority of the snaps. I think he has 3 huge games, like 15-plus points. I think he has 1 or fewer catch in the other 3. Like the very definition of boom or bust so far with Isaiah Likely, but at least in terms of talent, he's probably better than Tyler Conklin, right?
He's younger.
All right. All right. Well, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more start-sit questions. We'll see you then.